Hello, this is Benjamin Fulford speaking on September 8th, 2023. Well, summer is over and things are starting to get very busy. The big picture is that all sorts of international meetings are being held all over the world in a sign that something is headed our way, maybe in October. So, what have we had that makes me think this is happening this time finally? First of all, we had the BRICS, which is now the BRICS 11, have their big meeting. And then that was followed up by the G20, which Chinese Premier or Prime President Xi Jinping skipped. Then they had an Asian Plus meeting. They've had anyway. The big one is the great UN Security Council annual gathering on September 18th and 19th. But it really does look like two different camps are trying to prepare for a big showdown. And right now, it looks very much like the people behind the Ukraine, Joe Biden, the West, are losing big time. Now, where do we start? Well, obviously, the fact that they tried to have a summit in Africa, a climate change summit, which was attended by all the usual cabal actors, the head of the UN, Ursula von der Leyen, and then U.S. so-called climate guard Kerry, all these people. They gathered everybody. They said, come on, Africa, let's do climate change. And they get less than 1/3 of the countries in Africa bothered to attend. That is very, very key to everything because without African resources, most of the large Western transnational corporations, especially those dealing with commodities and things like, commodities, oil, minerals, that kind of thing, they are doomed. And that will hit the owners of the Federal Reserve Board big time. This is because, for example, the Rothschilds with Glencore Commodities, the Rockefellers with their oil, all these people cannot survive financially without these African resources. And that's being taken away from them. We've seen a huge increase in the amount of countries that are removing them. We saw the business in Niger, Gabon. That's spreading, and that will continue. So that's the big thing I've been keeping an eye on. Now, the other thing, of course, is here in East Asia, we're also heading for some sort of event. Now, the propaganda media has begun reporting that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is going to Russia to meet President Vladimir Putin. Well, let's first of all, let's point out that neither Putin nor Kim Jong-un are on this planet anymore. These are just avatars. But nonetheless, what I've heard is that North Korea has been supplying Russia with weapons for at least 7 months. The reason for this is because North Korea has one of the largest artillery forces on Earth, and they have been stockpiling artillery weapons and ammunition for literally decades. And they've sent that to Russia, and apparently Russia paid by giving them a nuclear submarine with 10 intercontinental ballistic missiles on board. That is a game changer because for decades they're always saying, oh, North Korea is on the brink of being able to reach the mainland United States. Well, now they can. And they are pushing for changes in Japan and the United States. And something is going to happen. Now, the other thing I've noticed that's a game changer, of course, is the fact that the Hunter Biden thing has now gone so-called mainstream. In other words, he's being indicted, and it's in the report. It's being reported in the corporate media. Removing Hunter Biden then removes Biden, and then that exposes Barack Obama. And of course, Barack Obama has also been exposed by Tucker Carlson and other people who are letting the let's say the people who haven't been paying attention to the real news find out that he has been a key pusher of this entire exaggerated gay agenda. There's nothing wrong with being gay, but trying to force it on kids and giving them sex change operations before puberty. That's gone way beyond the line. But in any case, they're flushing out Obama. So we've now seen at the ASEAN summit that Kamala Harris is suddenly saying, well, it looks like I might have to be president after all. This is the promise they tried to make to the East Asians to try to get more support. Say, hey, we'll have this Indian lady as president, so come on. And actually, promising an Indian lady as president for the United States and having an Indian ethnic as Prime Minister of the UK all points to a very, very intense campaign to seduce India into the Western camp. And to a certain extent, India is taking the bait. They're doing so because at the big BRICS meeting, India and Russia were pushing for a BRICS currency to replace the US dollar. And the Chinese basically said no, because you know what, we already control the US dollar together with the Saudis and the Japanese, etc. So they were very disappointed, and they're trying to do something else. But the problem with India is that even though they're huge and their population is young and they have, competent Prime Minister Modi, they don't have a trade surplus. For example, Russia has been selling them oil and getting paid in Indian rupees, but they can't spend them. There's nowhere to take them. They're just piling up. And so unlike China, India does not have a huge historical trade surplus and big piles of money it earned from the rest of the world. But in any case, the battle is continuing, but it's all clearly coming to a head, and we're seeing marks of desperation on the part of the cabal. We noticed, for example, that they announced that Joe Biden came down with COVID, and guess what? 2 days later, say, oh, well, now we have a vaccination for the new COVID that Joe Biden got. All this kind of stuff. It's like nobody's being fooled anymore. The other big thing that is happening is that Donald Trump is finally realizing that he made a huge mistake with Operation Warp Speed and pushing the vaccines, and now he's suddenly saying you can't have COVID lockdowns and you have to safety test the vaccines. Well, better late than never. It's good to have someone like that on board, but what it looks like, I've heard from the people behind Leo Zagami and that whole faction that put Obama in power, that they're now trying to get behind Trump and use him as their man. We shall see if that's going to happen. And behind the scenes, if you look at the finances and everything, it is still clear that the United States is headed for some kind of event in October. We mentioned before that the emergency broadcast is now publicly being set for October 4th, which is a few days after what would be the default. Now, even though if the U.S. defaults officially, finally, on September 30th, they will have 2 weeks. So before that goes public. So that during that 2 weeks, it looks like they're trying to prepare some sort of martial law. The big battle will it be controlled by the White Hats or not? Speaking about White Hats, a lot of readers for a long time have asked me to contact Michael Baxter from Real Raw News, and I've tried and got no luck. So finally, we got our act together and we called the Judge Attorney General, the people who said that Baxter always cites as saying they're having these trials in Guantanamo and that Hillary Clinton was hung and Nancy Pelosi was hung, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the Judge Attorney General's Office of Public Relations told us that Baxter's company is owned by Meta, in other words, by Mark Zuckerberg Rockefeller. Okay, so it looks like what's happening is he's putting out hopium. He's saying, hey, don't worry, all the bad guys are being arrested, they're being hung, so just, go back to taking your pills and your injections and watching your screens and drinking your beer, and don't worry. But unfortunately, fact-checking in the real world shows that this is a hopium operation, and so please disregard anything from Real Raw News. If they wish to call me and object, I've tried to contact them in the past. They won't talk to me, but let's see. But something is happening. Now, there's a lot behind the surface. We've, the MI6 and these very high-level professionals who actually do have the, license to kill, have a list of operatives who have been behind people like Biden and all this sort of stuff. And action is being taken, but we're all tired of waiting. We each need to do our part. Something is going to happen. We are going to make something happen. And by the way, it is happening. It's not like nothing's happening. You notice that the oligarch who put Zelensky in power in the Ukraine, Kolomoisky, was arrested on corruption charges. What I'm now hearing from my CIA sources is that they are forcing the Ukrainian regime to actually hold democratic elections. In other words, they're cleaning up the criminal state capture in the Ukraine. They're going to try to turn the Ukraine into an actual Western democracy and then unify it with Poland and Latvia. So that whole thing is being wound down. And it looks like, some sort of deal is going to be reached, but this month you're going to see lots of meetings, lots of jockeying for power, and let's see what happens, but we're not going to wait. We're taking action on several fronts, but we need to see the public removal of criminal leaders like Justin Castro, Emmanuel Macron, Joe Biden, etc. They are criminals. It's proven. They shouldn't be sitting in power anymore. And unless the military police take action, then extrajudicial action up to and including revolution is the only choice we will have. But it's going to happen. These people are losing. They do not control the world anymore. They're really down to a small rump. And if they've only got, one out of the less than a third of African countries behind them, then they're set to lose lots of votes at the UN, which, itself, as you know, is not really a world organization. But nonetheless, things are happening. The long summer stalemate is over, and all sorts of big things are coming up, and we will be right on it, and we'll be pushing for the white hats, the real white hats, to win. Well, that's what I have to say for myself today. Now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question today. Based off of intel, do you think Biden will fall before Trudeau? I mean, I don't know how the military could even maintain martial law given our current state. We've been tapped for resources and support. I'm ready to go.
I think Biden and Trudeau will probably go around the same time, but as things stand now, yeah, they're both under serious attack. There's no doubt about it. Something has happened. Something has changed. So, in Canada too, there's public calls from Trudeau's own party for him to resign. That's big. And of course, you see all the Hunter Biden stuff. So yeah, I think they're being taken down simultaneously. That's my best guess. I'll find out more. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Why do you specify democracy over a, quote, constitutional republic? Is that referring to countries other than the U.S.? Obviously, there's a big difference there. The U.S. was founded and supposedly restored as a republic. Calling us a democracy is a huge downgrade, in my opinion. Could you please elaborate on this?
I'm not going to get too technical. All I mean by democracy, I'm not going to, is that the actual people control the government. Now, how they do that, whether it's through a Republican form or whatever, that's another issue. But the point is that right now, the people are not in charge. The government does not work for the people. We need the government to be of the people, by the people, and for the people. And that's what I mean by democracy. The technical stuff I'll leave to the constitutional experts. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Just a wild speculation on your part here is what I'm after. What sort of percentage of folks, say, in any given comment section, do you think could be deep state, name your bad guy agency plants? I'm noticing for a while now the absolute identical tone type of comments, just straight up declarations followed by ridicule and dissension. This screams mind control to me. What do you have to say about this?
The general rule is that the top 1, 2, 3 people are compromised. Their system is top-down control. So you can only judge these people by their actions. However, it's been pointed out by many, many people that, for example, everybody pushing COVID-19 was well, they call them Jews, but I say they're Khazarian mafia. They're not actually Jews, but you can identify them through their words and their actions. I think Colonel Douglas McGregor is right in thinking that the entire show in Washington needs to have needs to be unplugged, turned off, removed. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Who is going to set the price of gold so that it always stays the same? Right now, COMEX manipulates all the metal prices under orders of the cabal.
The oil and the gold seem to be linked now to the US dollar, which is no longer controlled by the American people. So that would mean that the Chinese and their allies in Saudi Arabia and Japan seem to be the ones controlling the price of gold. And in Japan, they try very hard to stop people from using gold as a currency. They try to control it. So I would say that the price of gold is being controlled by the people who are taking over the dollar from the people who tried to back it with oil after 1972, the Nixon shock, when the U.S. ran out of gold. So I don't know for sure, but it looks to me like the people who control the U.S. dollar, who are not Americans, also control the price of gold. And you'll see that most of the real gold trading is now moved to Shanghai and Asia. It's not in London anymore. Next question.
We have our last question for today here. What are your thoughts of the ongoing threats of another pandemic lockdown, specifically with these new variants being talked about? Will it happen, and do you think the people are foolish enough to fall for it twice?
No, I mean, this is a very definitely a boy who cried wolf situation. Just look at the amount of people who are going to get vaccinated now. They're all saying, nope. Everybody went, or most people, not me, of course, and not anyone who's really thinking, but most people went first time, less the second time, and now I say less than 1% at this point. So no, they can't do that. That's why they've been trying to do this climate change, and they're pushing this weather warfare to try to use that, and that's not going to work either. I mean, we're sick and tired of being controlled by fear. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, speaking about the big ASEAN Plus summit in East Asia, summed it up very well. He said, look, we have these Westerners who come to these meetings and they talk Ukraine, 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 Ukraine. Well, this is East Asia. We're not here to talk about the Ukraine. We're here to deal with real business, like, visas and trade agreements, and, the Sherpas, the people who actually deal with day-to-day issues, aren't the problem. And they go to these meetings and they work stuff out that they've been negotiating for months, and the leaders are supposed to sign on it. So when the leaders come and say, Ukraine, 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 all the Sherpas say, hey, that's not what this meeting's about. And a lot of the countries agree. And so these fear-mongering, hysteria promoting people who are, I call the Khazarian mafia, have lost the ability to scare us into submission, and they're terrified. They are terrified. The people around Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel are begging for some kind of protection. The people around the whole Biden show are trying to, get protection. They've lost. You'll wait and see. It'll be obvious to all of us. They cannot rule if we aren't afraid of them, and if we know what they're doing. They're not they needed secrecy. They've lost it. They've lost. I know I keep saying this, but if you're outside of the United States, it's already happened, and it will happen in the United States soon. But everybody needs to push, because enough is enough. Okay, well, that's it. Next week will be the anniversary of 9/11, and let's see if they finally actually have some government official actually, like a president, appear on TV and tell the truth about that. That would be a big sign. Trump promised he would. He didn't. Let's see. But there will be big changes. The thing is going to collapse. I won't say it's like a bubble. You can say it's a bubble. It's going to collapse. You can't predict the timing. But the current U.S. administration is a bubble. It's going to collapse, and I believe soon. And we all have to make sure to push for that. And I appreciate that people are withdrawing their money from